Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here. Hope all is well. I just thought I'd pick up where we left off yesterday. And for those of you who joined us yesterday, we did a little exploratory work on just these little handheld mini vacuum cleaners. And I think yesterday's purpose was to just go through a series of sketches or thumbnails, what I refer to as soldier studies or elevation concepts, looking at form studies in essence, putting a stance down, maybe changing the gesture, maybe some shear work, maybe some organic work. The overall pursuit of that program yesterday was to just kind of lay down some ideas and some rough, real rapid, quick sketches in pencil format, and really looking at, as I said, gesture or stance, and also materials usage, application, grip, certain ways to look at these things from the point of view of being a very functional little product to deal with. And then, of course, yesterday we went through a series of those elevations and sketches, very quick and rapid in pencil format. And then we went from that to digital. That took one of the sketches, for example, the conventional little elevations we did in pencil as a conventional sketch, and began to duplicate that, or else to repeat that, or I'll put it down again in sketch rendering format and sketchbook in a digital format. So I think it was interesting yesterday. I think what I've got to do is look at that very seriously from the point of view of getting the glare to come off that screen on the iPad. Several things that I noticed in working with it. Yeah, it was pretty intuitive, but at the same time, there's a lot of what I refer to as almost like a lot of glare coming in from the lighting we've got in the studio here. So I'm trying to get that rectified, and eventually, as I said yesterday, what I also want to do is bring in my very large 28 or 30-inch board, the Cintiq, and get that operating and going through the process. I'm going from more streams in the future, programs, for example, to deal with conventional sketches, then into some digital conversion. So bear with us here. Again, it's going to be a lot of fun. But I thought today's stream, we'll go back and look at part 2. As I said yesterday, it was more of a rapid pencil series and into a little digital conversion piece. But I'm going to go back and look at a couple of those sketches we did yesterday and begin to just go back and refine them. And moving on today with a little some Prismacolor pencil sketches on newsprint, and just refining some things and going back to more of a conventional look here to kind of tune in on phase 2 of what these guys are doing. So let's get started with just a series of, I've laid some thumbnail sketches out here. Let's get started and just lay in some really rapid, again, elevation here to start with. Looking at just, again, the same subject matter, just going through a little series of sketches here. And to get it all started, lift this thing off the ground. Put that little section through here, just nice and quick and razor it. Now let's get that handle come into play here. Little section change. There it is. Into that. A little bit of an offset here. Just a real nice simple little study here to get it all put together. And then come back in with a little bit of a break in this guy here, just where the glass might separate itself. Coming back into the handle graphic. Where the grip system is, show a little bit of a cheat job in the side of the form there, and there it is, just a nice little quick and very full. And let's put a tone to this guy, just a little bit of surface to it here where it begins to break. A little more line thrust, a little more shadow underneath this guy. Describe what that handle's doing, back up on top. And just enough of that. There it is. Some line weight change again. A bit of hot spot area here. Bringing in the glass. And the on-off switch just on top there. A little more tone to this. And again, strengthen that little cut line. When the geometry changes, and that's where you empty this thing. Empty line is here. There and there. There's a little thumbnail study in elevation format of what this refinement series is going to look like today. Just going into, again, looking at taking a good serious look at maybe slowing down the surface a little bit and doing some more sketch justification. Just going to put this down on a ground base here. Change it just a touch. A little bit of shadow in this thing. Describe the shape just a bit. Into a ground line. It's up. In the ground. Back to the underside and just catch a little bit of that handle right there. And take it off the page. A little stronger. And there it is. There's some high contrast shape in this thing. So there it is as a grounded piece there. So that's one little study here. Let's put it in perspective. Let me sharpen this pencil for a moment here. And as I've said several times when I go through the process of like sketch rendering or ideation work, I always really believe very strongly in the fact that what makes it really work well and smoothly is learning how to begin to build a sketch. And by building a sketch, I mean literally starting out, which is a very, very important process for me to work with, getting a platform set. Let me show you what I mean by that. A platform means what kind of perspective are we going to work with. This is going to be a two-point study, but I'm going to start with a platform that does this and a platform that does this. Notice how those two lines really begin to close in on one another, and it sets up the platform. The next, the most important part to me in putting together some of these concept work is to work off a center line. So get a spine system in through here and just lay down a center line and give you a guide as to how to begin to look at this thing from the point of view of there's my platform perspective line. There's another platform that gives me the stance of this actual sketch itself. And once I have that established, that center line is going to help me build the proportions accurately in both the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the form. So let's begin to add a little bit of shape to this thing. Let's come back in and add some surface. Come across, take it in, and run it right on in, and just get a section down. There's a piece there, and there's a piece there. Now let's go to the other side. The section there is very round, so it's got a little bit of that to it. So let's do this. Let's kick that same platform, turn it over, bring it back in again, and just run it right back in. Now notice, let me stop right there. Look how that little trick of getting the platform set, perspective line from the right, perspective line from the left. Notice how they collapse, what I would call they collapse. There's a lot of convergence. That's what opens up the proportion. That keeps it honest in perspective. The second thing is to get that center line to come through here, and that helps you build the accuracy on the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the form. Let's kind of tuck this underneath here, bring that other portion underneath. Now let's get the baseline in. Let's add a little theme to this again. Let's do this. A little bit of this, and then run that right in. Let's get that strong accent line up on top. And again, over here. Run that right through. Now, let's get the baseline down. Nice and round. Drop it in. Bring it back. Notice again, really taking the time. What I'm seeing here is this. Now that section begins to change a little bit. Look how it begins to go from round to bevel, back to round again. So if you put a little bit of an indication of what those shapes are doing, it really helps you to see how to begin to build this form. Let's finish off the tail section here where the handle is going to be. Take it off the page. Let's put a hand grip in this thing. That's it. Back in. Follow the shape a little bit. Bring that down. Draw through it. Get the hollow side, and then there's the other form, the other side right there. Now notice, very quick. Let me sharpen this again. Pardon me. It's very quick, but extremely functional, and it happens together, and it comes together extremely rapidly, because you're allowing the geometry of perspective and form and proportion to work for you. Let me just kind of get this line tuned in here a bit. And there it is there. And there it is there, and undercut here. And there's that secondary line right there. Comes right through. Now let's get the area where the glass is going to fall in place here. That's going to be that. And there's let's do this, a little bit of change of pace. Let's radius this off, run it across, find its contact area, and come across again, pick it up, and then just cut it right back. That is going to be the area that'll be removable. Draw it through, and then just very lightly indicate where that backside line is. Look how that literally just formed that shape very quickly by using two very simple principles. Number one, getting the platform set, and number two, working off that center line to kind of give you a guide here. Now let's put a bit of tone in this thing, like we did with the other sketch. Up on top, run it through, underneath. A little bit of shape. And again, where the halo graphic is, let's work with that. Notice, look where the stroke pattern is. It's right back in perspective. I'm taking that right back to that platform line. Into this. Indicating a radius here, a little bit of paper, then back out again, and showing where the light source is coming from, which is from behind. So I just cant that line stroke back in perspective, then in the direction of where the light is coming from. A little more tone in this way up on top here, into that. Move some highlight line over here. Let's put a little bit of an on-off switch in this thing. And a little more tone to this. I can kind of go with the light source, tone that back just a bit. And let's do this, is bring that through. And let's bring this on through. And let's change pace here. Let's put a little bit of a detail on top of this guy, where the scoop is here. Into a hard shadow. Bit of an overlap, a little bit of highlight again. Got a little bit of paper there, tells me where that shape begins to roll over just a bit. And it comes into here, shadow. And again, right back to the light source. Now let's add a little bit of this. Just gonna put a little bit of glass surface in this guy. Take a Weaver pad and some pastel and show that right where that's gonna happen. Nice and faintly, and a little bit more. Run that through. Gives a little more sense of transparency. And when it's all said and done, you want to take this guy and just get rid of some of the pastel. And there's a nice, simple little theme sketch. It's putting it form together very, very, very quickly. But again, the idea today was to slow things down a little bit, go back to more of a conventional sketch, and begin to build these studies and begin to make some sense out of these guys. So let's do this. Let's get some of this out of the way. Pardon me. There we are. Now let's lay down the light source where it's coming from. Shadow. Into the blister. That scallop. And again, light, a little bit lighter as it moves away from the light source. As it travels toward or away from the light source, it's going to do more of this. Dark, dark, into light. A little bit more stronger underneath it. Plant it just a bit. A little bit darker again. And just slowly but surely move it away from the light source itself. Let's extend that just a bit. A little bit more flare in the shadow itself. Build that in. A little reinforcement line underneath. A little bit more reinforcement underneath. And just very animated sketch. Back to the structure again. Working through it. A bit of a line weight change. And again, there's sketch number 2. I mean, look how simple that really is, and yet at the same time, begins to really telegraph what that shape is doing. I'm going to try something here. Pardon me just for a moment. Let's go back and do something else here. It's a little bit more. Let's get a little more impact in that glass. It's almost a little bit too greenish here. Let's kind of get a little more of this into it. There you go. That's more like it. And the nice thing about that is you can come back with its pastel system is terrific. You can come right back in again once it's set and put highlight right back into it and animate the shape. And just do this. Get that brush. Clean up a little bit and call that sketch number 2. I mean, look how simple that is, but at the same time, how really important it is from this point of view. And I think maybe it's just a personal thing with me, and I hope it never leaves me. For example, about when I draw, I'm always thinking about the structural side of things. What's the platform setup? How is it going to be set up in space? What's my center line going to do for me? How does that help me begin to build this whole idea of keeping the perspective honest and the shapes falling together nicely so it doesn't become a twisted proportion and it just falls in line with a lot of the rhythm we're setting here. Let's put more tone underneath this guy, a little deeper shadow. There you are. A little more core in this guy. And again, a little more on the far side of this shape. Let that run through. And again, there it is. Very quick, but at the same time, hopefully effective. And it keeps it clean too. Notice, the other thing about building the surfaces and working through the structure is really important, is notice how much paper is coming through. I'm not filling everything in. I'm letting the eye and the imagination begin to fill in the shapes and surfaces for me. That's an extremely important part of the process as well. So let's go through the same process again. Let's get this platform set. There it is there, and there it is there. I mean, look how extreme those lines are. One's very close, one's very open. That's going to give me the perspective drama that I'm after. Now let's come right back in and build a center line in place. Drop it just a touch. Now let's get the near side line in. This is going to be a lot thinner, almost wedge-like. So that, into that, and over. Just nice and easy. Now a little bit more weight in the closest line to me. Beef it up. And as it goes back in space, lose it. Now let's go underneath here. Let's get this front portion. Let's kick this back. Let's put a little bit of body into this thing now. Keeping it very simple. Kick it uphill and then into the handle graphic and then return it. Now there, look at that basic shape. Just because of those two things, again, operating in harmony. Sorry to be redundant here, but I think it's really important after yesterday's go around being very quick and rapid and staying basically in an elevation format and it's more soldier, moving in a little bit of elevation and perspective here, how critical it is to see how, if it helps you an awful lot, get that platform set. In other words, my perspective drive lines, it'll set up the platform. Here's my vanishing point, the vanishing point left. This is going to vanishing point left. And it really begins, and then these are going to vanishing point too. But the key thing is to get that drive line set up to work with us here. So let me sharpen this mess up for a moment. I'm gonna come back in and just change on. Look at now. Now this is gonna tell me what the section's doing. That change right there tells me that surface is extremely fractured. So it's more of that to that. It's very beveled. So it's got a very strong bone line up on top, but it's also fractured on the sides itself. Let's bring this in, take it on the side, take it back. Let's get this up on top here. Let's drop that in. And let's just get a line right through here. Just a little bit of a character change. Let's take it forward as well. There it is. Let's kick that across. Bring this into play and then run that right through as well. And there's my secondary line. That's that. Let's put a little bit of change of pace on this. Take this on here, drop it over the side, and I get a little bit of a design change right there. So you can go with that nozzle or the nose piece is going to sit on top of this form. So there it is. Comes out. Now let's put more line weight in this thing. Let it fade. And again, let's do this. Let's get a little bit more. Let's bring this line back in here. And let's just change this just a touch. Thin it up back there for the benefit of doing the following. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right away, getting more of a grip system back here. So it just kind of takes a more of a soft grip up on top. So all of a sudden, look at that shape, and all of a sudden how it's been defined here. So let's come back in here, make a few changes. Let's first of all, let's put a little bit of surface into this thing first. A bit underneath. Now notice how quickly I'm putting those shapes in place. Doesn't take an awful lot of attention. Just really sliding through certain areas here. A little more beef underneath. Back into that surface there. And again, the important lesson here is how much there's a little shadow in this thing here. So it tells us what that grip is doing. It's much softer. A little more shadow into this. Let's give you a material change underneath here. It's going to be almost like a co-molded handle over plastic. Let's put a little bit of a split line in this thing. Takes me back to that. Just a little bit more drawing definition in the shape itself. Let's put a bit of highlight in this thing, where that light source is. And again, look at that form, how just nice and simple that is in terms of just being really fluid and getting the job done for us here. Now let's do the same thing with the end cap here. Right from the light source, let's tone it in. A little bit of highlight up on top. Now, since this is beveled, we're going to get a lot more. This is going to go a little lighter as it faces the light source. This is going to go a little darker. This is going to help me indicate and to telegraph what this section is doing. Let's speed this up a bit here. Pardon me as I turn this just a touch. That's that. Let's take that a little deeper. Darken that side up just a touch. And there it is. Look at that definition. Really helped to kind of tell us what that shape is doing. In other words, lighter, break, darker, break, darker, away from the light source. Let's kind of put this underneath here for a moment. Let's create a little bit of a shadow to kind of set this thing up. Again, notice how that shape, let's just tilt this in there. It's going to go lighter. To just a bit touch darker as it moves away from the light source. Let me turn this upside down for a moment here. Right side up. Build it more with a shadow back here, so it gets a little deeper. And again, keep this forward edge nice and light, closest to the light source. A little bit of beef underneath this guy, just to give it a little bit more presence. So there you are. There's a series of sketches there that just kind of put it all together in terms of keeping this thing nice and simple, planning the ideas of getting the concept together by laying down the platform, working with the center line, coming back in and developing the shape and describing the section. And the last one, at least, let's put a little bit of this into it. Yeah, how cool is that? Just laying a little bit of pastel in there. Come back over the top of this guy. Putting it back to paper, which is a nice thing about pastel. Very forgiving. It gives you a really great instant surface to work with here. And it's really very fluid. Very, very, very helpful. There's a little bit of that. Let's get this out of the way here. Let's put that in place. And again, a little bit of definition with regard to where the hot spot is. Let's run that highlight right through here. And open it up since it's a bit of a wedge surface here. Right along that highlight line. And let's bring it back. Pardon my hands here. And for what it's worth, there's a little study based on getting that highlight to work and getting that glass, and it can come across here too. As this comes across away from the core, we can actually do this as well. A little stronger line just to break that accent. And a couple of those guys in the glass, make it a little more reflective. And there you are. I mean, look how simple those sketches are, but at the same time, they're really playing into, let me just do one thing, and pardon me as I adjust this tail section here. That's better. And again, let's get this little razor line to be a little cleaner. That's better. Just a bit more definition. And for what it's worth, a little bit of this underneath too. And then just blend it in. Now look at that. I mean, that's a very simple series of fluid sketches here that just kind of hopefully tell a story about what we're dealing with here in terms of putting together a very good compatible sketch in terms of working with the structure, the space itself it's going to occupy, the drive lines it's going to develop it, the platform lines that set it up in space and so forth. It really makes a huge difference here. I'm just going to go back and put a little bit of a frame of reference this guy. A little bit of frame. And that's that. Let me sign this guy. We'll move on to another study here. So there's sketch number 1, or plate number 1, just continuing where we were yesterday on putting together these little mini, hardly did I do this, these little mini handheld vacuum cleaners. Again, just taking a more conventional look at maybe developing a series of sketches here to kind of move into this marketplace. Very conceptual, very theme-based, and again, looking for shape, just like we did yesterday. That program was definitely set up with looking at some form studies, but again, this one today, taking some of those form studies, slowing them down, and being more traditional with some of the sketches that we're dealing with. So let's sketch number 1. Let's get that out of the way. And just for what it's worth, let's take a moment here, and we'll go back in and develop another set here. Let me sharpen these pencils. Go back to an elevation again, and begin to start this guy. Let's do this. Let's do a little bit of a different approach here. That's kind of nice and easy. Notice, I'm beginning to set that gesture up in elevation here about what I'm looking for. Come back in through here. Let's break this thing. And again, break it here. And a little bit of a design change here. Let's kind of open this up. A bit of an offset right there. A bit of tone in it. Take it through. And again, some weight changes in the lines here. Just kind of rotate this pad. There you go. And again, let's get this forward piece to kind of roll over just a touch. And let's bring it right back into the form here. And this little scoop area here, let's kind of nail that down. Ground line. A little bit of shadowing through here. The boulder line weights. A bit of a break. Some ventilation. And again, underneath, a little bit of tone into that highlight area there and roll it right through the shape itself. Maybe this has a bit of a different texture as well. So pardon me moving the paper quite a bit here. This might have a bit of a color accent or a material change. So let's kind of put a little bit of emphasis on this. And see what that yields. Let's bring this uphill just a bit more. And there it is. A bit of a different stance, but nonetheless, something we kind of use. And let's put a little crisper ground line down here. So there's a little elevation study. Pardon me, I'm going to pull off of here and work with just a bit to put into perspective. Again, just getting a character down or an established sense of what we're looking for here. Now, same thing again. Let's get this platform set up here. So I'm going to start here with this. I'm going to put out a line that does this. And I put down a line that does that. I'm going to collapse those two lines. That's going to set that platform up for me nicely. Now I'm going to come back in through here and work a center line through. I'm going to build off of this center line. Run that right on through. Now, it's a little different here. A little rounder. And again, a bit of an overlap here. Let's take this in, bring it back, roll this back, and let's take this right on through. A little overlap up on top here, like a sheath of some sort, and there's a design line there. Let's take this back. That tells what that form is doing. Now let's drop that off just a bit, then get the handle in place. Underneath, you get a little bit of that offset. So you get through, and then complete the handle form itself, and then just show a little bit of underside here, just a little bit of a cheat job there again to get that, to give it some depth. There's that split. Some ventilation underneath here. Some line weighting through here now. A little bit of form. Take it on through. A little bit of shadow underneath here in the handle. Just exaggerate it just a bit. And let's get this back in place here. There it is. Let's take that right through. Now there's a little bit of overlap here, so let's get that line, that real strong line to kind of give us that little bit of shadow break in that backside form. Pardon me as I rotate this again. Let's bring it around and take it right through. Still working on the principle of keeping these shapes really open and fluid. Let's put a little bit more impact on these guys. No need to fill them all in, just get a little more character to them. Look at that shape coming together here, hopefully very nicely and extremely quickly. Again, a little more tone into here. A bit of an offset here. Let's bring that into play here. Let's get the shadow to work with it just a bit here. Pardon me as I rotate this side down again. The reason I move the paper around quite a bit because it really keeps my shoulder lucid and free to work with some of the lines I'm dealing with here. It doesn't lock me into trying to rotate and twist in certain areas that are extremely uncomfortable. It just keeps the drawing method very fluid and at the same time very spontaneous but yet controlled. How's that? Let's come back in through here underneath the base. Now let's work with the light source here. Notice I'm going right back to where my light source is, in this case from the upper left hand side. Just enough tone here. Let's offset this just a bit. Bring it around and then call it a day. Now the mechanism for bringing up the material and so forth is underneath here, so it's more of a handheld piece. You just walk along with this thing with like a wand and begin to pick up some of the material to dispense into the cleaning system or the container. Let's put a little more of this into it. Let's just drop this down just a bit more so you can get a little more around. There it is. Let that highlight to run through. I have a nice little place to put some identity in here. Indicate where the light source is. Bring the shadow up underneath that line. Bring this on through. Maybe a little more tone in through here too, so it's in the shadow. And let that come right back into the handle. A little more core line through here. And little by little, that sketch is starting to emerge. I think if you're going to put a little bit of shadow to it, just to kind of give it a little bit more drama here. Just to start it. and let it fade. Darker. As it walks away underneath that shelf, that's a little bit lighter. And again, notice it's still going back to the perspective lines. In other words, drive line, drive line, drive line. They're all working together. It's a real common theme here. So it all works in harmony when you understand what the principles are doing. And I hope I can say this properly here. The more you keep the principles will keep us. But at the same time, while you're doing that, what's a miraculous part of the whole process is this. Once you understand more of it, understanding the principles, yeah, they'll keep us, but also it gives us some really good license to go ahead and break the rules because we know what we're doing with it. We can go a little bit more fluid with it and have a lot of fun just putting some really interesting things together here with this whole process here. So let's go back here one more time. Platform, platform, platform. I was setting up that whole idea with 3 lines. In the center line, roll it over, and again, pick it up. Lead line, far side line, roll this shape in, roll that shape in, and it's abbreviated here. A little bit of a variation on the theme here. Vacuum area down below. Let's go back and put that handle in place. Notice working very quickly. The reason I'm working very quickly is because now I can begin to see what's happening with the overall element of getting the drive line set up and also where the center line is telling me to go with this guy. So it's going to add a little more detail in through here. Let's change the pace here. Let's get that one lead line in place. Let's take it across the form and take it to the other side and then just recess it ever so slightly. Put a bit of shadow in here. Tells the viewer this piece kind of sets back a little bit. Part of that rotate again. And again, into that light source from behind, so it's going to be there, there, and there. I'm going to take this piece and just roll it in just a bit more. Just set it up. Get the shadow underneath it to work. A little bolder here. Get those ventilation systems working. Let's get that battery split line a little bit. Maybe a little battery split there. Opens it up just a touch. Now, a little bit of surface in here. Tone. Run it through the shape itself. Underneath. And then lose it. Across this fillet. Let's do the same thing. Let's kind of put this underneath here. Pardon me, then rotate again here. Shadow underneath there. A little deeper. As I walk across the form. Pardon my hands here. And there's a pickup apparatus. And sharpen this up just a bit. And again, some of the cooling operation here. And again, a little bit of a strong line here. Pardon me as I rotate this page again. Up and fade. And that's just going to do it right about there, folks. Look how nice and simple that is in terms of putting this whole piece together. Let's do a little bit more of this. Pardon me, let's put our chain. Just a touch more of this into it. And rotate this down underneath here. Get that line width to come up a little bit. And there it is. How interesting it is. Just again, working with two very simple principles. This entire exercise has been really tuned into that essence, and that is looking at the very possibility of just working with a platform setup. In other words, set the line up. There's a drive line there. There's a drive line. Look how those two lines really collapse, so they take you back to perspective, as does this back to the right-hand side. But I think the critical part of it all is two steps, really. And every time I see something or I begin to illustrate or sketch a theme, I'm always thinking about the structure. So in this case, these mini vacs are very simple. It was a drive line setting up, and then the most important second step is this. And then the sharpen the stick remote is to get that center line to run right through there. And then that becomes a build feature for us to see how proportions, for example, on the right-hand side is greater than the proportions on the left-hand side. So it gives you a sense of perspective or actual depth. Same with this guy. Look how that center line right here, that center line sets up more weight here, less weight there. That's the drama perspective. Gives you that sense of reality. And very quickly here, let's kind of put a little bit of theme line into this guy. A bit of a box section. Frame them off and tie them together. There it is. So let me just sign this guy. Once again, just a very simple series of passes. Look how the first set we've done here, for example. Let's go back to sketch number one, plate one, looking at an elevation, and again, into that same process of doing that, translating that into a little bit from a two-point perspective. And then using that drive line setup or that platform setup with the center line to build it. Same with this guy. Very quickly done. Not a lot of force behind it all. It really takes very little effort to put this all together. And again, we said earlier on in the stream, I've always been very, very conscious of the fact when I work on things such as this, no matter what the scale is, whether it's large scale automobile work or architecture, I'm always looking at the structure of things. How is it built? What's it set up? What kind of perspective am I going to use? And once I decide what kind of perspective I am going to use, how am I going to set the platform up? What's the most dramatic view to look at these things? And this one being very needle-like, just opened itself up for a real long, thin drop from left to right, where it really kind of accentuates the length of this guy. So that's the lesson in that setup here. And going with a little bit of a different stance to it, more vertical, but still handheld as a vacuum. To be in the pickup apparatus is underneath the shell here. And looking at the stance again, but the key is, again, sort of to close it off with being redundant, but it's so critical. Platform, center line, build it from there, and you're on your way. So if you have any questions, please feel free to visit my website at drcontrast.com. You'll find there a series of 9 drawing lessons that kind of walk you through perspective, light source, volumetrics, shape, for example, and then just sketch rendering skills, language of line, the things we did here today with line weights and the like. Please feel free to visit that if you have a moment. And if you would be kind enough to drop me a note at my email address, and that is at jim@drcontrast.com. I'd love to hear from you about what you'd like to see. For example, if I can work on something here on my stream that would be of benefit to you, I'm more than happy to see if I can tackle that and help you out. And last but not least, I've always stated this almost every stream, and I think it's very, very critical, that if I've done something right here or said something right here, tell me. If I've done something wrong, don't be afraid to let me know. Tell me as well. I'm really interested in building my relationship here with the audience that I've already garnered, which I'm really grateful for. And while I'm at it, if you don't mind for a moment here, just to kind of plug myself, please feel free to pass along to your friends or whomever in the drawing world or the creative world that my website is available for those who might be looking at it to look for some assistance. Be happy to help them there. And last but not least, it's always very, very meaningful for me to end it like this. every stream. For example, day one has been very built on a very simple premix, and it's this: never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day. Look forward to hopefully seeing you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye now.